When our preschoolers stand on this bema to graduate, they sing a song about responsibility. By the way, they have adorable hand gestures to go along with it. They sing, "When I was a baby, I could do anything I pleased, but now I'm growing older and I have responsibilities." When a bar bat mitzvah student, when they stand on this bema, their parents declare that they are no longer responsible for this child because this child is responsible for him or herself. And when a couple stands under a chuppah, quite often on this very same bema, when they stand at their wedding, they too take on new responsibilities in partnership to care for each other in good times and in bad. In each case, new responsibilities. And in each case, we understand and we interpret the concept of responsibility so differently. As one community, on the cusp of our 10 days of introspection, this is the concept we all will explore together. What does it mean to be responsible? Kol Yisrael Aravim zeh bezeh, the Talmud tells us. In the translation that we have chosen for this year's High Holy Days, all of us are responsible for each other. But if the English is rich in its interpretive potential of this one single word, responsibility, then Hebrew possesses an embarrassment of wealth for its equivalents for the word Aravim. In the Hebrew Bible alone, there are 268 occurrences of the same roots found in Aravim. Kol Yisrael Aravim. All of us Aravim. It means many things. It means that we are responsible for, that we intervene on behalf of, we are guarantors for, we are intertwined with each other. Tonight, we dig into the ways in which our tradition understands this notion of being responsible for each other. Our purpose tonight is to share all of the different ways and the meanings that this one phrase can hold. What can this single word, Aravim, teach us about how we interact, zeh bezeh, each with the other? How many ways can this one phrase be understood?
The very first time the word is used in the Torah is in chapter 43 of Genesis, when Judah pledges his life for his brother Benjamin. Now, up to this point, Judah had been a rather despicable character. He deceived and he took vengeance and he didn't live up to his pledges, and frankly, he just was not a very positive character. But we see a changed man in this story. At this point in the Joseph novella, Joseph became in charge of all the food rations in the land, and he demanded that the brothers go back to Canaan and that Benjamin be brought back down to Egypt. Judah, to convince Jacob to part with Rachel's only remaining son, Joseph was dead, he thought. He said, quote, "I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible." Later, when Joseph threatened to keep Benjamin as his prisoner, Judah stands up once again and he says, quote, "Now your servant has pledged himself for the boy to my father. Therefore, please let me remain as a slave to my Lord instead of the boy. Let me not be witness to the woe that would overtake my father."
Judah's love for his father, Judah's guilt about selling his brother into slavery and deceiving Jacob. All of those things motivate him to take responsibility for Benjamin's life, just as the one who serves as a guarantor for another on a loan. Judah, as a changed man, risks himself for another, unsure of what the outcome will be. He leaves himself open and exposed on account of another person. That's part of what it means to be responsible for another, to take a risk on someone, to leave yourself open and trust in another, to tie yourself to the other, to link yourself with their future, to pledge your life along with theirs. Now, if this feels daunting, it is. To whom in our lives would we take that kind of responsibility? This meaning is perhaps the most personal and the most precarious, the one that is targeted deep in our souls. To be a guarantor, to say, I pledge my life with theirs. It's a meaning that forces us to reflect on the relationships in our lives. Kol Yisrael Aravim ze b'zeh. We pledge ourselves as a guarantor to another's life.
Kol Yisrael Aravim ze b'zeh. All of us must intervene on behalf of one another. First, they came after the Muslims, and I did not speak up because I'm not Muslim. Then they came after the Mexicans, and I said nothing because I am not a Mexican. Then they went after African Americans, and I stayed quiet because I'm not African American. Then they came after the LGBTQ community, and I was silent because I'm not LGBTQ. Then they went after the press, and I looked the other way because I'm not a member of the press. Then they went after immigrants, and I thought it was okay because I'm not an immigrant. Then they came after me and my rights, and there was nobody left to speak out on my behalf. From Michael Hunter Oakes.
Throughout history, destruction and hatred is found when there is no one either willing or able to stand in opposition. Our inaction makes us culpable along with those who cause the carnage. The late Elie Wiesel wrote, "Indifference is the epitome of evil." Hannah Arendt called it the banality of evil. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel reminded us that, quote, "Few are guilty, all are responsible." After the Holocaust, the Christian theologian Martin Niemöller wrote that famous poem, "First They Came," about how each group looked out for themselves, and in doing so, lost the collective strength to take on evil. Today, the groups that are targeted are different, but the need to intervene, to stand with, remains the same. Kol Yisrael Aravim ze v'zeh. All of us must intervene on behalf of each other.
Kol Yisrael Aravim ze b'zeh. All of us are wildernesses, one with another. In 1976, only 25% of Americans lived in places where the presidential election was a landslide. In other words, we lived in ideologically diverse communities. However, in 2016, that number rose from 25% to 80%. Researcher Brene Brown explains that we are sorting ourselves into segregated ideological and sociological political groups. And while you might think that this would result in more feelings of connection in our lives, the reverse is actually true. There is a rise in loneliness. Brown explains that we are missing what she calls true belonging. True belonging, she explains, is something that only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. True belonging is not something we achieve with others. It's something we carry in our heart. Once we belong thoroughly to ourselves and believe thoroughly in ourselves, true belonging is ours. Belonging to ourselves means being called to stand alone, to brave the wilderness of uncertainty, vulnerability, and criticism. Belonging so fully to yourself that you're willing to stand alone is a kind of wilderness. It's a place as dangerous as it is breathtaking, a place as sought after as it is feared, but it turns out to be the place of true belonging. And it's the bravest and most sacred place you will ever stand. It's not just about braving the wilderness. It's about becoming the wilderness. It's about breaking down the walls, abandoning our ideological bunkers, and living from our wild heart rather than our weary hurt.
The core story of our tradition is the story of our redemption as a people out of Egypt, through the narrowness of the parted sea and into the vast, unknown, frightening, and awesome wilderness, a place where we incessantly complained, incited rebellions, and lost faith in our God, and a place where we tasted freedom, became a people, a nation, and received Torah. The wilderness, the Jewish paradigm for redemption, is truly norah, terrifying and awesome, just like these Yamim Norim, these days of awe. It is norah, terrifying, because it means we're required to face and own the true nature of who we are, unfiltered, and face all of our ego and all that we believe, even if that would require us to stand alone in the wilderness, apart from our tribe of family and friends and social, political, and ideological groups. But it is norah, awesome, because in becoming a wilderness, we achieve true belonging to ourselves and to others by something greater than politics or ideology. We become connected to each other as spiritual travelers on the same human journey in order that we might brave the wilderness together. Kol Yisrael Aravim ze bezeh. All of us are wildernesses, one with another.
Kol Yisrael Aravim ze bezeh. All of us are mixed in with one another. A daytime television show invited Craig Cobb on air to hear his DNA ancestry revealed from one of those spit-in-a-tube mail-in tests. Why Mr. Cobb? Because in 2013, he faced charges for terrorizing people while trying to create an all-white enclave in his home state. The results? 86% European, 14% Sub-Saharan African. The studio audience couldn't hold back their amusement. Clearly, he would be forced to reevaluate his racism lest he be forced into self-hatred. But Cobb had a different response. Wait a minute, hang on, just hold on, just hang on a minute. Now, this is called statistical noise. According to a Harvard researcher, white supremacists taking the DNA test with hopes of proving their racial purity often find themselves in the same shoes as Cobb. For the majority of those disappointed with their results, they found it easier to reject the legitimacy of the test rather than rejecting their problematic ideology. They might say something like, this DNA test was a conspiracy made by the Jews. Or, as Craig Cobb offered, that small percentage of mixing in, it's just statistical noise.
Aravim. To be mixed in with. What if Aravim is not a commandment of how to be, but rather just a description of how we are? A simple statement that our existence is intertwined with others. So often we look at Jewish history as a story of separateness, hidden behind the ghetto walls or secluded in shtetls, untouched by the cultures around us, an untainted, pure Jewish community. But the theologian Rachel Adler reminds us that a nostalgia for such a time is a nostalgia for what never was. There never was a time when ancient Israelite religion or the Judaism that succeeded it were not being influenced by cultures and religions that they encountered. Even when our people fled from ancient Egypt, even in that moment when our community was the most unified, the most distinct and whole, even then, an Erev Rav, a mixed multitude, Aravim, an Erev Rav, joined us, a blend of people who were not us, but found themselves among us. Our strength, our resilience, it comes not from our separateness, but from our mixed-inness, from our ability to integrate and blend the best of what we encounter while still holding our sense of self. And responsibility is born when we recognize our mixed-inness. Kol Yisrael Aravim zeh b'zeh. All of us are mixed in with each other. Each year, when we gather in this room to welcome the new year, to ready ourselves for these 10 days of introspection, we stand with each other, guarantors for each other, mixed in with each other, in the wilderness with each other, intervening for each other, responsible for each other. We face the new year together, each of us perhaps needing something different from the message that will guide us. But whatever we need to give, whatever we need to get, we need each other. Because however you interpret it, we are all responsible for each other. Shana Tova.